Al was diagnosed with lung cancer just 7 weeks before his death. But in that short time, so many of you wrote and called us at Channel 13 with good wishes for Al's recovery.
Before we move on to the weather, we wanted to say a great thank you to all of you for sending so many cards and letters for Albert. And we want you to know that everyone that comes to the station is being taken to him. And since last week, we have gotten 30 pounds of mail.
Wow.
And just 19 more pounds are being delivered today to his home and to his family. They have been overwhelmed, very touched, very moved by your outpouring of good thanks and hopes for him. Here's a greeting that is going to be echoed by everyone here at the station. I'm sure many of you. Let's hear it.
You Al, and get well soon. Get well soon.
Those are the kids from Riverside Elementary School in Joppa. They said, we love you, Al, and get well soon, which we all feel here.
Some great big get well wishes for Al Sanders today. Members of the Golden Lamp Christian Church signed a giant get well card for Al, who's taking chemotherapy. And Al sends a great big thank you back to all of you who've been thinking of him.
I want to take a moment now to once again thank you on behalf of Al for all of the tremendous numbers of cards and letters and gifts and things you've been sending. They've all been delivered to them in huge bunches, like 2 or 3 times a week.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to do the weather in just a minute, but first we have a special message for Al Sanders. You're watching Al, I Know. These are from the kids at Our Lady of Mount Carmel Elementary School.
A is for always cheerful. L is for good luck. S is for ever smiling. A is for the apple of our eyes. N is for a great newsman. D is for delightful. E is for excellent. R is for a special reporter. S is for the sunshine you always bring us. Get well, Al Sanders from Our Lady of Mount Carmel Elementary School.
All right.
Yeah.
Yay, that was wonderful.
Wonderful.
It was, and I want to know you to know something, because I thought this was very touching. Al was given the offer, because there were so many cards that you sent, to have someone help him. Thank you, all of the people who wrote him, and he said no, that he was going to personally answer every card. He obviously didn't have time to do that, but I think it's wonderful to know that that was his desire. That's what he wanted to do, to thank you. So if you send a card, know he read it, and know he wanted to respond.
Certainly sounds like Al. And of course, it wasn't just those of us with whom Al worked or those who grew to love him through the medium you're watching us on now that appreciated Al. As we alluded to a minute ago, he was a man who lived for his music. An art form Al spent a lifetime listening to and learning to love. And as Stan Saunders found out today, because of that love, even more people learned to love him.
Pianist Claudie Hubbard and bassist George Hyde remember the times Al would come by the Prime Rib restaurant to dine and listen to their music.
And then I would play his favorite song, which I'm Getting Sentimental Over You. And that would knock him right out. Oh, boy.
Hubbard says he and Al would often chat about the love for music they shared.
He was a drummer. And
He had a love for music, didn't
yeah, he had a real love for music. You know, he knew Miles Davis and all of them personally.
Seemed very relaxed and at ease, and like he needed it after a long day, so he seemed to enjoy it.
Doris Ligon, director of the Maryland Museum of African History, located in Columbia, says the town will never be the same without him.
I think he brought sophistication, he brought informality, he brought friendship, he brought credibility. But that's the kind of person that he was.
Claudie Hubbard recalls Al's passion for Duke Ellington music and his sense of humor. He says Al had him in stitches, telling a story about waiting for a bus.
And it was raining like the devil. And he went inside, and the man wanted to know, was he going to buy a car? If he wasn't going to buy a car, he had to go back outside. He was down on Cadillacs from that day on.
There was nothing that was put on about Al, and I think that that's what attracted everybody to him.
For Claudie Hubbard and many others, Al will never be forgotten. Stan Saunders, Channel 13 Eyewitness News.
For nearly 12 years, Michael Olesker, of course, has delivered his commentaries on the 6 o'clock news while sitting next to Al. Tonight he has some memories of Al, both on and off the air.
Look, the news was always the foundation, but he had a sense of fun that was just delightful. Al Sanders had a feel for the underdog and a gentle, paternalistic touch that he leavened with a dry, deadpan sense of humor. One night I was doing a piece on the 150th anniversary of City College, which was my high school. When I sat down during the commercial break, Al asked me, "Why do they call it City College?" "I don't know," I confessed. A moment later, on the air, he said, "Michael Olesker's here to talk about City College. Mike, why do they call it City College?" "I don't know," I said. "Well, that's your homework for tonight," he said. He understood that the news is often bleak and it sometimes needs a little comic relief. Some years back, when NASA worried about the spacecraft Skylab falling to Earth, a kind of low-level panic crept across the land. Al interviewed NASA officials, and then in the closing shot of his story, he sat at a picnic table and he wore one of those old-time folded-up newspaper hats on his head. "This ought to protect me," he said. For a long time, Al Sanders gave a lot of us a sense of protection and also a sense of fatherly perspective. And that's a pretty good epitaph for anybody in this business. I'm Michael Olesker.
That's very nice, Michael.
Nice.
Thank you.
One of the more touching moments happened the afternoon that Al died. A representative from the Orioles called over to the newsroom that day and asked if they could observe a moment of silence for Al at the ball game that evening. It was something the Orioles said they wanted to do because they knew and respected Al, and it was a moment that I am certain Al's family will never forget.
At about 2 minutes here in the ballpark, once again, there's going to be an announcement made to the crowd by public address announcer Rex Barney, and then 10 seconds of silence, followed by a minute tribute, a video piece that was put together at Channel 13 that the Orioles asked for out of sincerity on their part. It has nothing to do with show business or the production of a game. They want to honor Al this evening.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise. Earlier today, our community suffered a great loss with the passing of Mr. Al Sanders, a gentleman, model citizen, an outstanding journalist whose work touched all our lives for the last 23 years. The Orioles ask that you join us for a moment of silence in memory of our friend, Al Sanders.
He was a guy that when he talked, I listened, and I thought he was coming from his heart. And I know he's only supposedly a news guy, but certain people have style and class, and certain people are believable and people that you just trust. And he was one of those people.
Everything he did was for the good of himself, his family, and for the city. He had everybody in mind when he worked.
It was so touching. And before I left home and I watched that 5 o'clock news, I didn't think I was going to make it to the ball game. It's beautiful, beautifully done.
We lost a good man. He was a true friend, and he was very sincere and a fun-loving guy and loved the game.
Tonight, the O's and many of its fans said goodbye to Al Sanders, but many here within this organization say his professionalism and outgoing personality may never be forgotten.
An incredible Baltimore memorial to a real Baltimorean, our friend, our good buddy Al Sanders.